All right, everybody, we're going to cover a not so fun topic, but it's a very important topic. We're going to talk about fire and EMS reporting, specifically reporting in fire RMS. So, the reason we're going over this, number one, we've seen a lot of reports that aren't being completed correctly. So, like, that's the number one reason. Some changes in the tabs that we need to start reporting that maybe we didn't do before. And also because we have new people that are coming on board, we have people that are moving up in ranks, people that are just kind of changing in this sea of change that our department's in right now. It's very, very important that people understand why we even need to do this, right? So we'll kind of address the why right now. So remember that we have two reporting systems. We have EPCR for the EMS patient care report itself, and then we have RMS. So fire RMS is our entire incident log. So basically, we live and die by fire RMS. It is our run numbers, it's our times, it's all of that stuff. That program talks to EPCR and gives it that information, but it's RMS that is kind of our main backbone of our data entry. When we're done with the fire RMS report, what happens is those reports get exported to a system called NIFRS and a system called OFRS. NIFRS is the National Fire Incident Reporting System. And the one thing is there's no state mandates that says that you have to report to NIFRS. We do, right? A lot of places report to NIFRS. We should report to NIFRS. There should be state mandates. But there's not like a national thing that you have to do that. There are departments that do not report to NIFRS. We do. And where that data goes is into this database. And you're able to pull and extract a lot of information from it. So you might say, well, what's that have to do with me? Well, a lot. So an example of this would be, let's say that we're seeing a rash of car fires. And this is nationwide. And we go back and we can pull that data and say, hey, 2018 Ford Escapes, for instance, just making up a completely fictitious thing, are having a disproportionate amount of car fires compared to all car fires in a look-back period. And we can say that, hey, this disproportionate amount is due to overheating on the engine. From NIFRS is where that data comes from. And so that will go back to the car manufacturer, being Ford, to address an engineering issue, some type of a problem with the manufacturer. And so when you see like car recalls and stuff, this is where that data comes from. So we are quite literally with our data driving change. Another example of this could be, hey, we're seeing a rash of kitchen fires. And say we, not just Westchester, but nationwide, kitchen fires are up. And with a look back period, we say, hey, it's LG appliances. And we could say that, hey, we can go back to LG, work a design flaw, and get data. Another place that you pulled a lot of NIFRS data from is the Firefighter Rescue Survey, Project Mayday. So looking at times, looking at incident responses, looking at how many fires we go to. So while those are imperfect data sets, because not every department reports to NIFRS, they're the best that we have. So the more data we can put in, the better off that we're going to be as far as the fire service and for ourselves. So that's kind of the broad overview of what NIFRS does. OFRS is the same exact thing, but on the state level. So while we might see like a rash of car fires on the West Coast due to charging stations and electric vehicles, and this is where a lot of the lithium ion stuff comes from, is out of that database. Well, OFRS for Ohio might not see that because Ohio doesn't have as much of that stuff. So we might say, hey, there's a disproportionate amount of cooking fires in the Cleveland area. So we could do some type of a blitz to maybe towards that Cleveland area and focus our prevention efforts there. Or maybe we're seeing a rash of fatal fires in our area, and that's what occurred to us a couple years back. So then the state fire marshal can look at that data and say, well, why are we having this rash of fatal fires in Southwest Ohio, and kind of work to that. So those are where those data sets come from. And again, it's really, really important that we're putting all that data together so that it's a complete package. It's not incomplete. When you have data sets, if you have junk being put into the computer, you're going to get junk out of the computer. So we want to make sure it's right, it's accurate, and it's timely. So just going through here, how to fill this out, we're looking at a couple different examples. One is from a possible structured fire today. So we'll just go ahead and open the report up. and we'll just walk through how to fill this out. So we have red areas, and the red areas mean that all these need to be filled out. Terrific. But there's more to that. We can't just fill the red. And I wish it was that's the system that was that easy to do. That's not the case. So number one, like make sure we have an incident number. Our incident numbers run sequentially, so let's make sure that there is one there. And then we just kind of see broad overview, like, okay, what areas need to be completed. So we can see here that we got our times, starting with the incident type for a building fire. Well, that was what was dispatched. So oftentimes this code will be incorrect. So while we went to a structure fire, we did not have a structure fire on this incident. This was an outside mulch fire that burned up a fence, never once got into the building. Therefore, not a building fire. So we're going to have to change this code. We can't just gloss over it. Another example would be we go to a car crash. This is going to generate a 322, which is a vehicle crash with injuries. But we show up, we check on everybody, nobody's hurt. In that case, it's no longer a 322, it's a 324. It needs to be coded as such. We might go to a vehicle crash and the doors are jammed. So we can just get the tools off and do a simple door pop. That is now gone from a 322 to a 352 extrication. So when we run our numbers at the end of the year, we can say how many fires we went to, how many entrapments we went to, all these data sets that we want internally and also externally. So we have to make sure that this code is correct. So we're going to change that right now. We're going to go to fires, and then we got to figure out, hey, what kind of fire did we really go to? One thing to note is cooking fire confined to container. This is going to be an oven fire, a grease fire that does not escape the frying pan. This does not escape the oven. As soon as it escapes the pan and scorches a cabinet, as soon as it escapes that and scorches a wall or whatever, that's now a building fire. And you might say, well, that doesn't make sense. It's because of how the OFERS in the fire prevention kind of coding works. All right, so even if it's just a cooking fire, if it's scorched or caused damage to the building or even to the kitchen, that is now a structure fire. All right. In this case, we were dealing with a grass fire. So I got to go down and try and figure out what I have. I have a forest fire, natural vegetation, but there's nothing that really, pertains to a fence on fire. So in this case, I'll do a brush and brush grass mixture because it was mulch and some other things. So we'll go ahead and code it that way. And that changes some things around, right? So it gets rid of a few fields, brings up a few fields, but that's what we're actually going to code this as. Casualties, if anyone was unfortunately killed as a result of this, we'd highlight that. How many alarms did it go to? And these alarms matter for EMS and fire. In this case, it was a 1-alarm incident. Station. Station is the station that responded to the run, not the district. Oftentimes it'll be both, right? So this was a run in District 5 and Station 75 was dispatched. However, oftentimes, if say Station 72 is out on a run and Station 71 gets dispatched, then it's Station 71 here, right? It'll be District 2, but it'll be Station 71 making that run. So there's been a lot of conflict with that in the past, but that is from the powers that be how we want to roll this. The next thing we want to do is make sure our actions taken are correct. So looking at extinguishment, we can only pick 3 things here. Once we get into each apparatus and personnel, we can add to these, but these are just kind of like, hey, what are the main 3 things we did here? If it was a structure fire, probably extinguishment, search, and investigation, right? So in this case, extinguishment, there's an apparatus operation, incident command. That's fine. Mutual aid, did we receive mutual aid? Which we did because it came in as a commercial building fire, and then log those departments there. So that kind of takes care of our first part of the form. Next, we're going to go to situation. So again, we were dispatched for a building fire, which is a 111, but it really wasn't. It was a mulch fire that caught a fence on fire, so it's a 142. And then were there any incident delays in this case? No. This field over here that it's not redded out needs completed. So incident reported by. Well, who called this in? So the occupant found it. What was our response? Emergency. This is another one where, hey, if we're going to say a fire alarm or say we're going to a lift assist, that we want this to be filled out. So we would put under our resources, we responded routine. And then over here, we would put we responded routine. So this is the overall incident. Was it emergency or not? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be emergent. Unless we're doing a single unit response routine, then it will be routine response. Then to our location, right? So we want to verify that this is correct. So in this case, we're going to Cox Road, making sure this is good, and then verify the district number, which again, the station in the district might be different. So our district number is 5. Our census tract is automatically populated. And then the county code. The county code is the county code from the state. So Butler County is the 9th county. It's listed alphabetically. So we are county code 09. If we go mutual aid somewhere, and we'll show you that, the county code is going to change, as will the district number. What was our property use? In this case, it was a specialty shop. And then our property loss and property value. So property loss, these are going to be redded out. So I went ahead and filled them in. So we estimated $2,000 of property loss, and it's just an estimate. What do you think of fence costs? You can Google it. You can call around, but we're not getting quotes and stuff. It's just an idea for their insurance stuff. And then property value. Where would you find property value at? We can close this out. We can go into occupancies. And we can try and find a business name. So let's try Dewey's Pizza, because while this came in as edible arrangements, it was attached to Dewey's Pizza. So we can look here, occupancy info, and here we go. Property of 772,000, content total 965, 225. There's some other shops in there, so we can kind of estimate let's say $1.2 million. I go back into my incident. So I'll go into my location, property value, $1,200,000. Content value, we'll say $475,000. Persons involved. So again, what information did we gain? So all we want here is, a name, phone number, someone to talk to. So in this case, it'd be the shop owner. An approximate age. It doesn't have to be specific. We don't need their birthday. Just their basic demographic stuff. And then click that they were the occupant. That kind of closes out our bottom fields. Highway supplemental attachments. We don't really need to worry about this for our basic reporting. We'll go to our resources. And so this is where we can add extra actions. So we'll go and show you ladder 75s. They operated the truck. They did extinguishment. They did command, but they also did some salvage and overhaul. So we just want to verify that this is correct too. Did they respond from quarters? In this case, they came from Chesterwood, so this is unclicked. Whereas engine 71 came from quarters. We want to make sure that if they went priority, meaning lights and sirens, that's checked. If it's a fire alarm, individual units are going to be routine. The overall incident will be emergent because we use lights and sirens. However, each unit, are you priority or are you routine? Then again, to our personnel side. So who did what? Making sure that all of those are correct. And then so I'll have mine for incident command. I did my stuff. We're good. Now we're going to go to the fire tab. So in here, we're looking at the overall building itself, right? So we had no residential units because this was a commercial building. We had one building involved, no buildings threatened. So then the cause. Was it intentional arson or not? In this case, it was unintentional. And again, if we're not sure, this would be undetermined, and we leave this for the arson guys. Area of origin. So we have a lot of different areas there. Heat source, if we can figure it out. If not, undetermined. In this case, probably likely a cigarette, but we never found a cigarette butt or evidence of it. So we're going to call it undetermined. Less than 1 acre was burned. And what did we see ignited? So here we're going to deal with organic materials. It's going to be light vegetation, so like mulch, grass, stuff like that. Again, if this were a bedroom fire or a mattress, then we'd change that to synthetic materials. Were there any factors contributing, like wind, short circuiting, bad machinery, anything, yes or no? In this case, there were none. And then involved. So equipment involved in ignition would be like a stove, an oven. We want to try and get the make and model. If there's an air conditioner unit, again, that's stuff that goes into this that we can draw that data out of. Mobile property, it would be a vehicle, right? So that's why we need the VIN number, license plate, all that information that's there. So the type, what kind of car, the model, color, license, VIN, all that stuff. So we want this information captured, right? And we don't really do a good job of explaining why we need to do that. Were there any human factors? In this case, no. And we want to make sure that our times are correct here. So did we do a primary search? In this case, we did. Estimating when we did that based on benchmarks or pulling the CAD notes. When did we get water on fire? When did we get an all clear of that search? And when did we release the incident back to the customer? In this case, we released about almost 920 hours. So that's when we started like reoccupying the building. Again, arson tab will be for the investigators, and then our narratives, making sure we have a good narrative attached to the run, and then we're going to authorize it. So that's kind of how we go through a very basic fire run. Closing this out, we're going to show you a mutual aid run, which is going to be a little bit different. So earlier, we went to a building fire, mutual aid in Deerfield. So we had mutual aid given to Deerfield, their incident number that you have to call and get. And then again, one alarm, who responded, which was Station 72, into Deerfield. Situation, it was a building fire, still a building fire. There was no delay. The incident was reported by other. Incident response was emergent. The location. We're not going to have a Westchester address associated with this. So the county code often with mutual aid runs gets messed up. So since we went to Warren County, that's county code 83. The district that we go to is going to be 8356. So 83 being Warren County, 56 being Deerfield Township. So if we went to Sharonville, this would be 3186. So 31 being Hamilton County, 86 being Sharonville. If we go mutual aid to Fairfield, 0931. So it's going to be the county first, 2 digits, followed by 2 digits of the station, or 3 digits. If you go to Liberty, it'd be 09111 or 09112. Census tract. Is also going to be the same. Again, resources, making sure that's all correct with our personnel, and then an incident narrative and completed. Lastly, showing you an EMS run. So again, EMS run, how that's populated. We have a 321 that we were dispatched to. Sometimes we'll go to a run and it might just be a lift assist. Again, we would take that and change that to a lift assist. Sometimes it's a canceled en route. If this check where it says EMS provided, you'll get this warning. So you won't be able to change this either way until you either check or uncheck that box that says EMS provided. So sometimes that just throws us a little nuance. Casualties, no. It was still a 1 alarm, which is kind of weird for us because, hey, what does that mean? we're dealing with EMS alarm assignments. So remember, we have an EMS second, third, fourth, and fifth alarm. Hey, we sent a medic unit to a run, it's a 1 alarm. We send 2 medic units to a run, that's still a 1 alarm, right? It's only once we exceed that where it grows. So that has to be filled in every time. The station that made the run was station 71. There was no mutual aid. And then what did they do? They did a little ALS. They did a little transport. The situation, they were dispatched to an EMS run. They found an EMS run. There was no delay. A bystander called this in, or a friend. We were emerging. The location of the run, we verified the address, verify the county code, the census tract, and we went to a bar or nightclub. Sometimes in vehicle crashes, we might go to like the interstate and you'll see like coordinates up here. You can change those coordinates out to be, the 22/5 on I-75, which would be an address. Sometimes you'll also see this generated for an intersection, like for a car crash. All we got to do there is just change this to intersection. And what you'll end up getting is this location not validated. That's fine. That doesn't really matter. That just means that we can't get a good GPS lock on it. But if we are going to say Smith and 747, then we want to put that as the intersection or adjacent to or in front of. So again, the more specific we can be, the better. Persons involved for an EMS run, we don't need because that information is going to be captured in EPCR. Our resources, the medic unit got there before the engine or the battalion, so we need to go back and verify that that time is actually our arrival time, so 15:24:13. And it's not, so I just got to quickly change that. Click on those. What time did you get to the patient? Which is 15:24:30. And what did they do? They did a little ALS, a little transport, and they came from quarters. The personnel, want to make sure that our personnel is correct. And this is, again, why it's so necessary for us to sign into the MDT every single morning. Then we complete our narrative, and then we authorize it. So the member making the report is literally that, who made the report. We do not specify who has to do the RMS report. That's a crew-specific decision. The only thing that we will say is have the discussion and have the expectation. What a lot of crews will do is the lead medic who took care of the patient is going to do their EPCR run, which obviously they need to do that. Their partner, whoever's on the medic unit, will do the RMS run. And again, that's totally fine too. The big deal is that it makes sure that people are doing that. So if we say we had firefighter Logan DeBoard and firefighter Mark Hammer on medic 71 today, firefighter Hammer rides the run in, he does the EPCR, firefighter DeBoard would do the RMS. It's just a conversation that you should have with your partner. What I would do on the medic unit is I would do both. And that was the only reason I would do that is because if you put your times in RMS first, they would port over to EPCR. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. The big deal is that we get this done. We shouldn't have RMS reports that are sitting vacant for a week, several days to weeks on end. We want these reports completed by the end of your shift. So both an EPCR needs to be done by the end of your shift, as does the RMS report. So they don't take a whole lot of time to do, specifically the RMS side, but we just want to make sure that they're done. So who did the report is log that. The officer in charge. So if you did the report and your partner was the lead medic, your partner was the officer in charge, right? The person with more seniority, the more senior person, officer in charge. In this case, the medic and the engine were both there. So we'll say that Scott Smith does the report. We'll say that Lieutenant Cox was the officer in charge. So that's all we need to see there. And then because I still have the engine stuff outstanding, we can't click complete. Once everything's filled out, hit complete, and then we're done. After you hit complete, save and close, move on to the next one. Again, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is capture good data. We're trying to make sure that the data that we're putting in is accurate, timely, factual, so that we can pull data out of this system, both for our department, our region, the county, the state, and at the federal level. Here in the next couple of years, a lot of this stuff is going to get for NIFRs in the EMS side, which is called NIMSIS. Those are kind of getting combined into a new software system called NERIS. We'll be having training on that once it finally goes live. There's some beta testing and some build outs going for that and on the back end, out there in the United States. But that's going to compile a lot of this data together. But right now, this is what we have. And so, again, we want this to be good data going in. Again, the reason that we're doing this training in the first place is because we haven't really had a good RMS training in years. Just to kind of deconflict and break down what needs to be filled in, what doesn't. And so I hope that was a big help to you. If anyone has any questions whatsoever, please feel free to get with BC Brooks. He is the RMS guru, or Assistant Chief Hannafin, or Assistant Chief Pickering. Thanks, guys.